Gracie Under the Waves is a middle grade novel about a young girl who loves snorkeling and through a series of unexpected events becomes a climate change activist. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner and welcome to the Kids Bookshelf. Ahead, we'll explore the book and I'll talk with the author about the inspiration behind it. Linda Sue Park is the author of many books for young readers, including the 2002 Newbery Medal winner, A Single Shard, and the New York Times bestseller, A Long Walk to Water. She joins us to talk about her middle grade novel, Gracie Under the Waves. Linda Sue, welcome to the Kids Bookshelf.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, tell us about the inspiration for this book.
Well, that's an easy one. I wrote Gracie Under the Waves because I love snorkeling, and I want as many people as possible to know about it.
Now, I understand that unlike Gracie, who discovered this as a child, you were older when you became a big fan of snorkeling.
That's right. I grew up in Illinois, which is pretty landlocked, and I now live in Rochester, New York. Of course, New York is not, as a state, is not landlocked, but my part of New York is. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I got to snorkel for the first time. And I'm telling you, it was instant. I put my snorkel on and my mask on. I put my face in the water and I was astounded. And I thought to myself then and there, I am going to try to do this as much as I can for the rest of my life. I saw things I had never seen before. And of course, you see them on television documentaries or on the internet, or they might even be your screensaver, but it's not the same at all. And that's what I've done. I've spent the rest of my adult life trying to vacation in places where I can snorkel. And I've been very fortunate to be able to snorkel in some amazing places.
Well, tell us about the story here. Tell us about Gracie and how snorkeling impacts her life.
Well, like me, Gracie loves to snorkel, and her journey is actually very similar to mine because I think the same thing could have happened to me had I had the opportunity to snorkel as a child. But she discovers snorkeling. She's crazy about it. She wants to snorkel as much as possible. And through that passion, she discovers that the planet's coral reefs are in terrible danger. And at first, she's like, well, I want the coral reefs to be in good shape so I can snorkel a lot. And gradually she learns that the problem that she's looking at is much, much greater than that coral reefs are vital for far more than just recreation.
And because she cares so much about it, she wants to get involved. So what does she discover about what she can do as a kid about this issue?
Well, I'll back up a tiny bit on that because this is actually something my young readers have taught me. I have a previous book called A Long Walk to Water, and it is about a refugee who was relocated to the United States and eventually went back to his home country, which is now South Sudan, and installs clean water wells for people there who have never had clean water. I wrote that story to give young readers an example of the idea that one person can make a difference. And that's my friend Salva Dute, who is the protagonist of that book. Well, the young readers did not respond like that. Instead, they were so moved by Salva's story that they went to their adults and said, we want to help. How can we help? And over the past several years, they have raised literally millions of dollars and have been responsible for installing hundreds of clean water wells in South Sudan that are now serving millions of people. They are literally saving people's lives there. And when that began to happen, I was blown away. I was like, oh my goodness, this is this gigantic untapped resource that we're not taking advantage of. The power of young people, especially the power of young people to move their adults. And they have that, they're not jaded yet. They have that optimism and idealism about them still, which is what we need, especially these days. So I went into my own passions, which of course, we've talked about, is snorkeling is one of them. And Also, the idea that, of course, there are a million great causes in the world, and people who devote their time and energy and attention and passion to all kinds of great causes. But whoever we are, and no matter where we live, the health of our planet should be on everyone's list of causes. Because without the planet, we're kind of in trouble. And it's especially, of course, vital for our young people. When I visit schools, I say, we adults have done our best, but we've kind of messed things up. And sorry about this, but you are going to have to fix them. You are going to have to fix the problems, especially those with our planet. So I was trying to think of a way into writing about the planet's health. And of course, when I put it together with snorkeling, it was just a no-brainer. It was just the perfect way in for me to write about with the passion that I feel. Sorry, that was such a long answer.
No, that's fine. And of course, with Gracie, she has this focus of wanting to help with this, but we learn about her life as well. And one of them is she has this friendship that's really important in this story. Tell us about it.
Gracie makes friends with a girl who lives locally named Alina. Alina is based on a real person, a girl I met when I was in Roatan, Honduras, on a research trip that was probably the best research trip I've ever taken. And Alina was only 4, but I aged her up so she would be an appropriate friend for Gracie, who is 11. But Alina was already snorkeling, so that really impressed me. And through Alina, Gracie gets to know Roatan in a way she wouldn't have had she been only doing tourist things. I love tourism. I am a tourist. I'm fortunate to be able to travel to a lot of different countries. But wherever I go, I try to go beyond the usual most famous sites and things to do and places to eat. And probably the very best way is to meet somebody local and to form a connection with them, and that takes you beyond and just makes the trip special and connects you to places in the world that you wouldn't normally have thought you could have a connection to. So that's what happens to Gracie in the story.
I'm talking with Linda Sue Park about Gracie Under the Waves, and our conversation will continue. If you're enjoying this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. The other relationship that you spotlight in the book is with her little brother, which I'm sure a lot of kids can identify with. And she uses a nautical term to describe him as well. She calls him the Barnacle.
Yes. I have a younger brother, and I have to always assure him that the younger brothers I write about are not always based on him, although they sometimes are. And I just think for those of us who are fortunate to have siblings, that sibling relationships are really, really important, because in the family, once again, if you're fortunate enough, your sibling relationships will last your lifetime in a way that even your relationship with your parents doesn't. I have a brother and a sister, and my sibling relationships are very important to me. So, as most writers do, you write about what's important to you.
So what do you think kids will learn about that sibling relationship through the story of Gracie and Ben?
Well, obviously, everybody's relationships are different, and I'm not meaning to provide a model in any way, because I'm only writing about the relationships that I know well. But I suppose I'll take that right back and say Gracie does learn about how what she finds most annoying about Ben can, in some lights, be a strength. And I think this is important in not just sibling relationships, but with the relationships that we have with everyone, is to try to remember that they have a story too. And this is what I often do when, like, just say I'm in line at the airport because there's a delay, and it's just I'm so upset, and the gate agent is not being helpful. In fact, they're being very unhelpful. And at times like this, I try to remind myself, okay, they're having a terrible day. They're going through the divorce from hell or whatever, something like that, to try to help me calm down and to remember that everybody does have a story, and the connections happen when we can learn a little bit about their stories.
And the mother in your story does that. She helps her reframe the situation with her sibling, and because she's just irritated that he always wants to be around her, he's always interrupting and interjecting, and she says, "Look, it's because he looks up to you, and he adores you, and he wants to be with you." So she tries to get her to kind of reframe it and look at it that way.
For many years, for several decades in at least American or U.S. children's literature, there was kind of this truism that the child protagonist in the story had to solve whatever problem it was all by themselves. And I find that a terrible model. I think that connection and community and collaboration are what we need to focus on in our stories. And I mean, what a burden to give the message to, you have to solve this by yourself. And I think it's especially dangerous for boys, for young boys. No, you don't get help on this. You solve this by yourself, right? So in all of my books, there are helpful adults. There are safe adults and trusted adults and adults that you go to when a problem seems too big for you. And I think it's really, really important. I really want to counter that narrative that you have to do it by yourself.
Linda Sue, in a moment, I want to talk to you about some of the projects that you're involved with beyond this book. But besides being an engaging read, what are sort of the key insights or takeaways that you hope kids will get from spending time with your book?
That they should look for, and this is something that is said to adults as well, look for where their passion meets the world's needs. So something that they're crazy about, whatever it is, there is a way that they can use that to help make the world a better place, to make connections with other people, to solve problems, to create community. And the best possible way to do that is through something you love, right? And to find themselves a passion, because I often find that people who aren't passionate about something, they seem lost in the world. They don't have anything that they really want to live for. And when people do have a passion, it's also an anchor. It can help you find your place in the world. So that's what I hope that they will learn. It doesn't have to be snorkeling, of course, and for most of us it can't be, but to find their own passion and through that, a way to help the world.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about, is obviously one of your passions, and that's diverse books and giving voice to authors who are, shall we say, outside of the mainstream, that need to be heard from more. So tell us about that.
So I have a few different efforts on that front, and one of them is my publishing imprint with HarperCollins called Alida Books, where I work with editor Ann Hoppy to produce not very many, but a few really carefully curated and chosen books a year that tell stories that I think the world needs to know, that I haven't heard before. Some of them are about identity, but they're not limited to identity, to let people know that those of us who are from marginalized communities, our identities are vital to us, but they're not all of us. That we also have passions and everyday lives, and we are more than just the color of our skin or our religion or our disability or ability. So I want to highlight and trumpet those kinds of stories. I am an honorary chair at We Need Diverse Books, a wonderful organization that has many different programs for getting diverse books into the hands of young readers. I all know, or I hope we all know, how important it is for people to see themselves reflected in books. When you see or meet a character who looks like you or is similar to you, so many things happen. The book is saying, I see you. You are important. You matter enough for literature. You're not alone. Those are incredible messages. And you think about the heartbreaking decades where so many children did not receive those messages because there was no one in the books who looked like them. It's equally important for readers in the mainstream to get those messages about people from marginalized communities, to get the message that, yes, they are important enough for literature. Yes, their stories matter as much as yours do. That it's definitely a win-win as far as I'm concerned. And finally, I have I curate a website called Kibuka, Kibooka, kibuka.com, and it's a listing of Korean American and Korean diaspora creators. When I first began, I could count us on one hand, the Korean Americans who were working in the children's book industry to produce stories. And Kibuka is now over 60, and I'm missing a whole bunch. If you are a Korean American creator, author, or illustrator, please go to kibuka.com and sign up to be listed. And I hope it's a great resource for teachers, librarians, parents looking for diverse books.
This middle grade novel is Gracie Under the Waves by Linda Sue Park. Linda Sue, thank you for talking with me today.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
If you'd like to purchase Gracie Under the Waves, I've placed a link for you in the description below. And if you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more books you might find interesting. Thank you for watching this edition of the Kids Bookshelf. I'm Dan Skinner. Until next time, keep sharing the gift of reading.